All right, so good afternoon and good morning and good evening to everybody, and welcome to the Champions of Human Resources Management mentoring session for the month of April 2025. My name is Omag Bisher Baru, and I'm the founder and director of Learning Impact Model, the company that puts together this program, and is very pleased to welcome you again, especially to today's program and today's episode, if I may say, of our ongoing series of mentoring and supporting human resources management professionals in the core areas of strategic human resources management. I'm also happy to welcome our new members who are joining us for the first time, and of course, the old members of the group who have loyally supported and contributed and participated in our activities over the last almost 2 years. So welcome to everyone. And of course, by no means the least, welcome to my colleagues from Learning Impact, who are providing, as usual, their support at the back end to ensure that we have a very successful and enriching program, as we always do. I'm going to start off now by just putting on my slides, and we will jump into the content for today, and we'll be ready to go. So can I just get a confirmation from anybody that see my screen? You can see the slides. Yes? Anybody confirming? Okay, I see a
Yes, we
chat.
can see it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Angela. So let's proceed right away with our session for today. So today's webinar, today's subject matter is training on a shoestring budget. Before we proceed, I'd like to just encourage all of us and request of us that we please put our microphones on silent until such a time that we are invited to speak. It's really important. This session is being recorded, and it also affects the quality of participation and interaction. I would also like to encourage my colleagues from Learning Impact who have been given the co-hosting rights to please be vigilant, especially when people get kicked out of the room and come in. They may come in with their microphones and forget to switch them off. So please help us to ensure that as quickly as possible, all microphones are switched off. All right, so thanks again, and we will proceed. So it's training on a shoestring budget. Yeah, it's also a very interesting time because we're in the middle of a very important holiday season, and I'd like to use this opportunity to wish everyone a happy New Year, a happy Easter, sorry, in advance, and best wishes as we celebrate the Easter with our family and with our friends. So let's jump right into it. My screen is set. Training on a shoestring budget. As usual, we always like to start all of our conversations by just talking a bit about our company, Learning Impact, and of course, introducing the Champions of HR program. We do this for the benefit of people who are joining us for the first time. And as I can see, we have a number of participants who are joining us for the first time, and I welcome you again. Learning Impact is an Abuja-based company that was founded in 2010. Before I founded Learning Impact, I had worked as an investment banker in the organization that is now called Stanbic IBTC. And I was pursuing a dream and a desire to really help organizations and individuals to be better. And that has been really the mantra and the focus of Learning Impact since we were established in 2010. What we do at Learning Impact really covers a number of key areas that help organizations and individuals to be better. For example, we provide corporate training and coaching solutions where we offer, customized and bespoke training solutions across a number of areas: leadership and personal effectiveness, sales and service delivery, strategy and innovation, business acumen and financial literacy, leadership, human resources management, and so on. And we offer this to organizations and to their employees. We also offer corporate coaching solutions where we come into organizations and provide coaching for their leaders and their managers at an individual and at a group level. One of the other important aspects of our work at Learning Impact is around strategy and organizational development consulting. This is where we work with organizations to help them to craft their strategies, to build strategies, to implement the strategies, and as well as to support the strengthening of their organizational design and strategic human resources, working with HR people, working with organizational leaders to improve practices across various areas of the HR life cycle. Very importantly, we also offer HR technology solutions, the flagship of which is our 360-degree feedback tools that help organizations use technology to improve certain aspects of human resources and human capital management. So that's a very important part of our business, and we continue to support organizations with our HR technology solutions. We also offer solutions around e-learning, micro-learning, as well as knowledge management solutions. We've got the online EFICO, which is growing to become the largest Nigerian and indigenously African platform for online learning. We also offer a knowledge management platform or product called the e-paper vendor that provides the complete digital version of the newspapers, the most important newspapers in Nigeria, from Guardian to This Day to Business Day and so on and so forth. And we provide this on a digital basis, on a subscription basis. And for HR people, this is really important because the more we read newspapers as HR professionals, the more we connect to some of those strategic and business issues that we often don't pay enough attention to, and which often keeps us out of the boardroom and keeps us out of the decision table. So we always encourage our HR leaders and professionals to invest in learning about broader strategic and market issues by reading newspapers. So that solution is available. And of course, we think about the future at Learning Impact. We understand the gaps, and we're going to talk about that even today on this program. We understand some of the gaps in our educational system, and we have pioneered and developed what we call life skills education resources and programs that really focus on children and youth, trying to build their life skills in a number of important areas like leadership and effectiveness, creativity and innovation, financial literacy, communication and presentation skills, as well as political literacy and civic education. Life skills, we believe at Learning Impact, are critical to every job, to every vocation, to every business, to every enterprise. If people had better life skills across these 5 areas, they will certainly do better and be more successful in their careers, in their technical vocations, in their businesses, and in their enterprises. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a brief synopsis of Learning Impact, who we are and what we do. Very quickly, I would explore with you the Champions of HR program, what it's about. So essentially, the Champions of HR program is really a program that focuses on supporting young to mid-career human resources professionals, as well as experienced professionals who want to continue to receive mentoring, support, and networking to grow in their HR careers. The major pain points of the HR Champions program focuses on strategic HR. The fact that, unfortunately, most human resources management professionals still have a mindset of administration or personnel management that doesn't allow them to rise into the realm of where HR should be, which is on a broader strategic level. So the content and the focus of the program really is to challenge and to expose HR professionals with the thinking, with the tools, with the practices, with the research that they need to be able to be more strategic drivers of organizational and business success. We started doing this in October 2023, and we have met every month through these webinars since then on the 3rd Saturday of every month, and we continue to meet. And so today is the 3rd Saturday of the month. In addition, we have a WhatsApp group where we, continue our conversations, continue our learning, and continue to network with each other and support each other so that we can really improve the quality of strategic human resources management practice in our society. So that essentially is the Champions of HR program, and that's why we are here. So again, I use the opportunity to welcome all of us to today's session. We're going to jump right in now, as usual, by exploring our outline and learning objectives. Remember, the subject matter for today is training on a shoestring budget. And just to decode that, it's basically what do you do as a human resources management professional or leader when you have a very small budget for training? How do you respond to this? And what can you do to ensure that you are able to get your employees to be able to learn and to innovate? Okay, so we will start off as usual, as we always do. Remember, one of the things we are fanatical about at Learning Impact is the relationship between theory and practice, And last month when we met, we explored this very important issue about the almost dichotomy, where people think that, some things are theoretical and they don't work in real life, whereas in reality, everything we experience in real life, is closely related to theory, because theory is an examination, it is an analysis, it is research into real life occurrences, and to codify it and to help people to understand it, you create a theory, and then you use that theory to improve life. And we talked about that a lot in our last session. So if you didn't catch that, feel free to go to our YouTube page at the Online Efiko on YouTube, and you can, find out what we discussed about the relationship between theory and practical. So as always, we will start with some theoretical and empirical foundations that provide us, the research and how does the research support what we are discussing, and how can we use it to actually apply, what we know as a body of knowledge to our organizations and to our lives. We'll move on after that to talk about what are the key challenges. Why are we discussing this? Why is there a problem? Why is there a problem with training? Why do we have to use a shoestring budget to train? Why can't we get a luxurious budget? So we'll talk about that and some of the realities, and then explore some of the root causes. What drives this? So certainly there are certain things that we may be doing, we may not be doing properly, that may be affecting our ability to get the right resources dedicated to training. So we will explore some of these root causes and then move on very quickly to examine best practices. What can you, as a human resources management professional, as a learning and development or a training professional, as a consultant like myself, or as an organizational leader also like myself, what can you do to start to get the most out of your training budget, no matter how small it is, or no matter how big or luxurious it is? And then we will talk about a number of tools that can also help you on this journey to support those best practices. And we will end with an opportunity for us to just have some conversations, to reflect, and to make some commitments, absolutely important, in terms of how we would like to take what we have discussed today and, at any other point in time forward into our organizations to really add value. Because as we always say on the Champions of HR program, it's not enough for us to listen. We have to put it into action, and we have to think about how to translate what we have learned into real life solutions. Yeah, we have a message from Maria. Maria, thank you. I believe that my colleagues are here. Please feel free to share the link to the WhatsApp group in response to Maria's question so that Maria can join the group immediately. And if there are others that want to join the Champions of HR WhatsApp group, please feel free to do so once the link is shared. So let's start off with the theoretical foundations. From time to time, I'm going to stop and pause to allow you to, reflect on what we've discussed, and then we can have some conversations. So if you've got questions, you've got thoughts, you've got clarifications, feel free to write them down or note them, or even share them on the message board right here, and I can pick them up. But every 15 to 20 minutes or so, I will do a little pause. And so look forward to the first pause coming quite soon. We'll start off with theoretical foundations. What does the research, what does the body of knowledge, what does scientific evidence in the study of organizational behavior, human resources management, and so on, teach us about the importance of training, and the importance of training even when you have a shoestring budget, and the importance of training and how to train and develop your employees even when you have a shoestring budget. All right. The first theory I'd like to explore very quickly on the screen, and I'm sure you can all see it, is what we call self-determination theory, SDT. Self-determination theory basically proposes that the most effective employees are motivated by three things: by a sense of autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Now, these three things are very important. Autonomy, you know, sort of a word that could help is freedom, independence, isn't it? That employees, that the best people like to be independent. They like to be able to connect with other people, relatedness. And they also like to be able to bring their expertise and their capacity and their competence to bear in their work. Now, this is really important because when you think about training on a shoestring budget, I'd like to challenge a thought. How about learning? You know, a lot of times people talk about training. When I used to be the head of human resources at IBTC Pension Managers, people will come to me all the time and say, Bishe, I need more training. And I'll respond to them, are you doing any learning? Are you doing any autonomous learning, independent learning? That even the training we have sent you for, did you learn or did you just collect a certificate? And have you updated your CV and your profile on LinkedIn? Have you learned? Because there's a lot more. And self-determination theory really talks about determination, the people who really want to succeed. They don't just sit down and wait for people to train them. They are continuously pursuing learning. The job characteristics theory talks about the fact that when you vary tasks, skills, and you enrich people's jobs, it actually drives motivation and performance. So the characteristics of our jobs, the way we design our jobs, has an impact on training and learning outcomes. When we talk later about some of the best practices to drive training and learning, even on a shoestring budget, you would see where the job characteristics theory fits in, how it helps to ensure that we design our jobs properly and we enrich our jobs with task and skill variety so that people can learn and be more productive. Expectancy theory is a very important theory that also helps us to understand this issue of training on a shoestring budget, especially from the perspective that some organizations, because they have very little resources, they completely ignore training. Whereas expectancy theory tells us that motivation is driven by expectancy. That is the relationship between an effort and a result. So think about learning as an effort. You have to learn something. And when you learn, then you'll be able to perform. It also talks about instrumentality, which is about the relationship between the reward and the performance, meaning, okay, so I learned something and I have performed better. Now, based on that performance, I am getting a reward. And of course, valence, the volume or the quantity of the reward. If the reward is higher, then I am motivated to perform better. And of course, I am motivated to learn more. The age-old question, is there a relationship between learning and performance? And if there is, are people being rewarded for learning that drove their performance? Is there anything else that drives performance outside learning? Can people perform if they didn't learn? These are critical questions that really speak to the heart of the challenge. Finally, but not exhaustively, just for the purpose of our conversations here, I try to limit it to about 3 or 4 theories at a time, is the resource-based view, which is almost the father of all theories related to strategic human resources management. And the resource-based view simply says that if you have the right combination of human capital in your organization. And remember, when we say human capital, please note, we're not talking about human beings. We're not just talking about having people, bodies stacked up in your organization. In fact, Dave Ulrich, the professor of human resources management at the Ross Business School, who is really the source of our discussions here, because it was Dave Ulrich who wrote the book, The HR Champion, recently has started talking about human capability, that we should even stop calling it, we used to call it personnel management. Then we moved to human resource management. Then we started calling it human capital management. He now says we should be calling it human capability management. Because if there's no capability, what is the point having a human being? So human capability is a powerful source of competitive advantage for organizations. So how do you grow capability? If you are broke as a company, if you are in an economic downturn, if your fortunes are diminishing, what do? Do you stop building human capability? And if you stop building human capability, how will you achieve sustainable competitive advantage? The resource-based view and the resource-based theory says that you can't. I hope that, ladies and gentlemen, some of these initial ideas and thoughts around some of the theoretical foundations are helping you to get to think about why we have a problem, what the cause of the problem is, and what we can do as human resources managers and professionals, or in the words of Dave Ulrich, what we can do as human capability managers to turn things around. Before we pause and I take your questions and thoughts, let me just share with you from our perspective what we consider to be some of the key challenges. So, very obvious, the fact that when there's an economic downturn, what do organizations do? They slash the training budget. They slash the learning and development budget. If there is anything, it's almost like a coup d'etat. In Nigeria, some of you are too young to know, but in 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Nigeria was full of coups politically. So, we'll wake up to martial music, and the first thing we hear, my name is General so and so, and I have hereby suspended, I hereby impose martial law and suspend all political activities. Same thing happens in our organizations in 2025. When there's an economic downturn, the CEO and the head of human resources and the board come up with a big announcement. And the first thing they announce is that we are hereby suspending all training activities, or we are suspending or we are reducing the cost of training by 75%, and so on and so forth. So these are real challenges. Yeah. And then you, as the head of HR or the head of training or the training officer or the HR officer, you are left with a very small purse to be able to deliver employee development. One of the other key challenges that is closely related to this is, of course, the concept of training versus learning. What I just mentioned, alluded to a few minutes ago, that what should we really be doing in our organizations? I think this is a very important thing, that I think first things first, we should even stop using the word training. I think the key word we should be using is learning. We want to create a learning culture. We want to create a learning organization. Training sounds like something that is entitlement, and it affects the way we think. So people think of, yeah, I need to be trained, versus I want to learn. Because we spend a lot of money on training, but very little learning happens. It might seem trivial, but you see, the name you call something changes its context and its meaning. And if you call something training and it sounds like something that you are giving, it's almost like, how do I express this? So I have to give you, it's like you are spoon-fed. I'm training you, versus you are learning. You see, it's more like push versus pull. It changes everything. So some of us in our organizations, we are still called training managers. Some of us, we are still called a training department. And some of our professional organizations are even still called training. I think that we need to start rethinking it and positioning it properly. What we want organizations and their employees to do is to learn, not necessarily to be trained. And I know, as usual, sometimes a lot of the things I say here are quite controversial, and people are already up in arms and wondering what's this guy talking about. So let me even deep dig a deeper and more controversial hole. And I'll explain it to you this way. Think about this. Everybody went to university, everyone went to polytechnic, everyone went to school. So can you imagine that you show up? And pay attention to this, everyone. Falilat, Maria, Joy, John, Tracy. Just think about this critically. That you show up at a doctor's office. You show up at your medical appointment, your doctor, and they tell you that this doctor that your child is your this pediatrician that you have to go and see with your child or for yourself or your aged parent, Angela, that this person is not yet ready for work because he needs training from the hospital. Is that something that happens? Anybody, is that a common thing? They say he cannot do the work as a doctor because he hasn't gotten training. Are you joking? What did he go to school to do? So let's think about this. Very critical. So what did we go to school to do? So what else? Okay, you're sitting in a plane, the pilot's about to fly. They say, oh, this pilot still needs some training. Oh. Would you like to be at the back of that plane? I wouldn't. But why is it that it's okay for us to fathom that, when we go to the bank, the people at the bank need training? I even watched a video recently about a guy complaining that he has worked for 16 years in the bank and they've been using him and sucking his blood. Question asked, have you learned anything? And when you speak to such people, they'll tell you they don't train us. And so my question, didn't you go to school? What did school do to you? Because if school produced doctors and school produced engineers and school produced pilots, how come school is not producing the people that can work effectively in a bank? So if you go to a school bookie and you say, this school, oh, we can't, these teachers, they're not ready yet. They can't deliver good lessons to the teachers until we train them. So why did you go and get a degree in education? Wasn't that to train you? Wasn't that the training that was necessary? So why are we all doing training in the organization again? Think about this. It's challenging, but it's the reality because it all affects our perception about the investments we make in learning. It affects the perception from the individual level. So the individual is saying to themselves that, oh, you know what? The organization, I'm waiting for the organization to train me on a shoestring budget. And then the organization is saying, we don't have any resources, so we will just cut the training budget and we might even eliminate training altogether. But nobody is asking a critical question. Are we learning? Because without learning, we can't build human capability. The doctor is continuously learning. The pilot is continuously learning. The teacher is continuously learning. The engineer is continuously learning. What about the people in our organizations? Are they continuously learning? What are some of the root causes of some of these challenges? Clearly, failure in our educational system. I mean, I was thinking about it as I was preparing this week for this session, just saying to myself that, our educational enterprise, universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, they are so far from the reality. We are bringing out graduates who have no work skills. They don't understand how organizations work. They don't understand the basics. So, for example, even the courses people are going to offer, they are completely not aligned with the realities of the world. So, for example, we have people who are studying marketing. I know so many people who have bachelor's degrees in marketing and are professional members of professional marketing organizations. They don't know anything about marketing. I know people who have degrees in HR and they know very little about real HR. They are still thinking about HR like personnel management. There is a problem. I know people who have degrees in finance, like me. I have a degree in accounting, 4 years in Unilag, and I'm talking 1990 something. And I came out with a degree in accounting, and I had never seen a checkbook. I had never seen a prospectus. I had never seen a real financial statement, like the audited annual report of a company. What type of education is that? And guess what? Things have only become worse. So there is a big problem. that our educational enterprise that is meant to provide the training. So you think about it now. So imagine if they tell you that we now have doctors who have never examined a cadaver before, doctors who have never cut somebody before, but they have come out as doctors. And it's the same thing now as the accountant who has never seen a real balance sheet before. It's the same thing. What can we do to address those gaps? And we can do something as HR people, and I'll talk to you about that when we talk about some of the best practices. Clearly, we have a recruitment and selection problem, but it's also not a problem that is just a recruitment and selection problem. It's tied to the first problem, because if the quality of people generally in the pool that we are recruiting and selecting from is not top grade, then, wetin man go do, as we say in Nigeria, you go manage the one way you get now. So unfortunately, in our best efforts to drive the right type of recruitment, that effort, just like in our best efforts to get the right quality of leaders, political leaders, that effort, unfortunately, is trampled upon, is truncated because of the pool. What is out there? You know what I mean? Yeah. So if what is out there is not very good, then we have to manage what we have. Of course, there is also a problem with leadership and the culture of our organizations. How do leaders perceive learning and development? How do people perceive learning and the effort to learn? And of course, very importantly, how does this translate to managerial capability? Because if managers don't to even manage themselves, and we see this all the time, people are put in managerial positions, and when you really reflect, is it this person does not even know how to wipe his own bum bum? How can this kind of person be responsible for other people? So we have to do a lot to build managerial capability. But again, go back to our educational enterprise. Where is the gap? Because isn't this what education is meant to do? To train and prepare us to be successful in the workplace. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, don't misunderstand. The pilot who was flying a Boeing 737 and is now flying an Airbus A1 something, he needs to be trained in the specifics of Airbus. That I understand that, and don't misunderstand me. And let me bring it to the point. So if I have a degree in banking and finance, I go and work for Citibank. When I leave Citibank, when I get to Citibank, they need to train me in their own system of banking. That's understood. But that's not what's going on today. What's going on today is that people are coming into banking with degrees in banking and finance, and they don't know jack squat about banking. Not the specifics of Stanbic IBTC or the specifics of UBA. No, that's different. So even if you go and work in a hospital, the hospital has their own style. So every doctor, but that's a small issue. The amount of resources and time that organizations are investing to train people from scratch, as if the people have no degree, it tells us that there's a big problem. So at this point, I'd like to just pause and hear our thoughts. What do we think about what we have shared so far? What do you agree with? What don't you agree with? What further clarifications would you like to enrich the conversations about training on a shoestring budget? We are still laying the foundation. So we've not gotten to the best practices yet and the tools, but this foundation is important because if we miss the problem, the why, and an understanding of the fundamental issues, then we will really not appreciate the practices and the tools that we can use to turn around the fortunes of training and development in our organizations. So let's hear from you. Questions, comments, clarifications. Yes, Angela, good to have you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. As always, were delivered. So starting from the root causes, or rather, let me ask my question from the training versus learning.
Yes.
why do we now use the word train the trainer?
Mm-hmm. Very good.
How do we relate that? If I buy the idea of the word learning
Mm-hmm.
because it gives commitment to you as
Mm-hmm.
an employee
Mm-hmm.
to take that training or whatever
Mm-hmm.
learning seriously.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you make it training, people see it as a way of relaxation. They just
Mm-hmm.
go there, take,
Passive. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the food, the ambience, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the learning bit of it, and then there's no follow-up even after the learning to see how
Mm-hmm.
well is this learning impacting on the current
Mm-hmm.
work. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then we say train the trainer. If we're taking out learning and you want to cut cost, that's where you train people to train others.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say? Instead of train the trainer, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, we can, thanks very much, Angela. We can play around with the language, but if you look at the points,
Mm,
train the trainer. So what are you doing now? So you are taking people who were never trained as trainers. You see,
okay.
you were trained to be a banker. You were trained to be, and this is, your question is so profound because I remember years ago, we were pushing for something in an organization I belonged to, NITAD, when I was on the exco of NITAD. And NITAD still has the name Nigerian Institute of Training and Development. But we were pushing something in NITAD, around the concept of, can we train doctors to be trainers? You see, people are working in organizations. We want them to train others, but have they been trained in training? So I think it's okay because I'm a trained doctor, I'm a trained pharmacist, I'm a trained banker, I'm a trained lawyer. Now, somebody wants to train me to be a trainer. What do you think, Angela?
Yeah, so
Mm.
that's honing the skills for you to be able to impact that knowledge to others.
Because that's not your discipline. Your original discipline was engineering.
Yes.
Exactly. So your original discipline is IT, for example. Okay, so now somebody is going to train you to be a trainer. Yeah.
Mm,
So it's okay. I don't think it's too bad, right?
okay.
And remember that there are people who study training. The people who study human resources management, aren't they the professional trainers? Aha. And it brings an important point, which we'll talk about very soon. And I'll leave the cat in the bag for a while. But if you think about it, you can get to where I'm already going. Yeah. Thanks very much,
Mm,
as always, Angela, for your question.
thank-
And again, very thought-provoking. Helps us to look at the issue very broadly. Anybody else? Question, comment, clarification on what we've discussed so far? Rabiu, please go ahead.
Okay, good day, sir, and good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for the enlightening.
Mm,
It's very key.
mm,
So the part which touched me very well is the issue of the thinking training in terms of learning, not just training.
mm,
And we all know as practitioners that when you talk about training, everybody just feel like, okay, let me go and
mm,
learn one or two things, and they take it as the responsibility of the organization to train them. That's
mhm,
why I agree with you. So
mm,
the part that has usually been issue again, I believe maybe you will still get there, is about talking about the ROI on learning.
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
when people come, even so, some people to even submit a report, training report is a problem. For
mm,
people to even respond to post-training evaluation is a problem.
mm,
So as we are in this course in this training today, I would like to at least learn more about how you can ensure compliance in measuring the ROI. Thank
mm.
you, sir.
You're very welcome. Great. And we're going to talk about that incidentally right next. So the next slide talks about some of the key issues in training and key policy issues. So I'll try and see if I can address your question and your very important concern about if we put up all of the things that we need from from a training or L&D perspective or HR perspective, how do we ensure that we can actually measure the ROI and do all of those things from a policy perspective? And how do we ensure that policy works? Abi, good question, Rafi. Does anybody else have a contribution or a question before we move on? Adeze, I see your microphone is on, or is that just because you joined us and you want to put it off? I also have Rachel Adeola Akimbayo. Would you like to ask us a question, make a contribution, Rachel?
No, please.
All right. Okay. So we can just proceed then. So let's move into that conversation. What are some of the key policy issues? So the first question I would address, or the first response I'll give to Rabiu's question, and this is really important, is what's our policy? What does a policy mean? Because sometimes you see, let me give you an example. If you say that there is actually, this is so important to me because I recently did a research work on this issue of what we call training transfer, and one of the issues is what is around the subject of accountability, and accountability is linked to policy. I'll try to explain. So if you say to someone that it's the policy of our organization to collect money before we render a service, is everybody following me? It's a policy of our organization to collect money before we render a service. If an employee does not collect money and renders a service on behalf of the company, the employee has violated the policy. Am I correct? Anybody there? Yes, no? If just give me some feedback.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And if someone violates the policy, remember the theory we explored, what they call it, expectancy theory. It talks about the expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Now, these are really important issues. That's why the theories are important. So Michelle, you're always talking about theory, but it helps us to understand your problem, Rafi. The problem is this. So if somebody violates a training policy, what do we do to the person? Nothing. Abi, after all, it's just training. He didn't submit a report, so not a big deal. But if somebody violates a policy on taking bribes, what will we do? There's a punishment for it. When people violate a policy on some other administrative thing, there's a policy for it. There's a punishment. There's a reward, a sanction. The valence of that sanction, how big it is, how small it is, it affects it. So what do we have as our L&D policy? This is my answer to you, Rafi, and to everybody else who is interested in this. What's our L&D policy? What does the policy tell us about training? What does it tell us about competency-based training? Does it address it? That training should be focused on the job characteristics. Remember the job characteristics theory. That if we know that somebody is meant to do ABC, then the training should be focused only on ABC, because there's a relationship between that learning that will take place as a result of that training and the performance that the person will achieve. So we need to look at our policy framework. What does the policy say about ROI? How do we measure ROI? What does the policy say about training transfer? The things you mentioned. And the critical point, what does the policy say about the culture of learning? Do we take our HR policy, our training policy, as serious as we take other policies? This is now an issue of management, leadership, culture. My answer very simply is that if we don't have all of these things and much more embedded in our policy, and if our policy has no instrumentality and the valence of the instrumentality is weak, then it is no surprise. So if I cannot say to somebody that you will not be on the payroll, your payroll for this month will be delayed to the extent to which you have not submitted your feedback form or your training reports. If we do not raise the investment we make, because you see, it's an investment. If you do not raise it to that level that level of valence, then there's no instrumentality. Nobody is going to listen to you. I have told you before on this group that I went to an organization. They say every year, one of the biggest companies quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, indigenous company, I will not mention their name, for 5 years before I interacted with them years back, they were doing promotions every year, promotions, but they were not signing appraisal form. So I said, what's going on? They say, what can we do? They say, we'll send out the appraisal form. Nobody will fill it. Then they will say they need promotion. So we will promote those who we think are performing. I said, I'm confused. A big company like this. Then I said to them, they said this year they're about to do appraisal. I said, okay, can we do an experiment? I said to them, let me share. That time it was BlackBerry we were using. I said, let me share you a message on BlackBerry. Send that message to your MD. Tell your MD to put that message on email and forward it to his direct reports, not to all the staff. What was on the email? The MD now sent out the email that to all his C-level executives that please, we are in the season of performance appraisal. Appraisal forms are due on the 25th of April. If the appraisal form for your department does not come on the 25th, bonus is to be paid on the 30th. We will not pay you bonus this year. Can anybody guess what happened with the appraisal forms that year? Your guess is as good as mine, Abby. Aha. All the appraisal forms appeared. So here's really where the challenge is. What are we doing from a policy perspective? And this is the first issue I think we need to address. What's our learning and development policy? And how does it speak to important issues? Competency-based training, the motivation for training. How do we select training? How do we decide who goes for training? How do we organize training? How do we deal with issues of ROI, of transfer, and of creating a culture of learning in our organizations? I didn't say we shouldn't train people, don't misunderstand. But I'm saying that we should think about it as a learning and development policy, of which training is one of the components. It may be the biggest component, but it is only a part of what it takes to get people to learn, develop, and make contributions to moving the company forward. This is a mindset shift. I hope that, Rafi, I have tried to address some of the issues that you raised. I can't answer everything. One day we will have a complete session. It's coming up soon on training ROI. We will have a complete session on transfer of training and the best practices in those areas. Those are areas that are dear to me because those are the pivot of the core of my research as a scholar. It's all around training transfer and training ROI. So we will get there and we will dissect it in more detail. But the question is, instrumentality, valence, expectation, instrumentality, valence. Is there an expectation? What do you use to enforce that expectation? And what is the degree of the severity to which that, sanction or reward is used? If it is very weak, if there's no expectation, problem. If the instrumentality does not exist, problem. And if, of course, the instrumentality exists, but is very weak, someone doesn't do it, you just say, please now, please try and submit, please, it's moral suasion. If you leave your 200 million, 300 million, 500 million naira investment in training every year to moral suasion, then it's not the fault of the employees, it's your fault. So what are some of the best practices that human resources management professionals like ourselves can enact to help us to improve this situation in our organizations? The first thing I would like to share with you is that I think we all need to intervene to disrupt education in our society. I mean, as a company, Learning Impact is already doing this with our life skills education programs and resources. That's our attempt to disrupt education. But all of us can do something, no matter how little. Think about this. As an organization, pick a tertiary institution around you. Anyone. If you live in Abuja, pick a university in Abuja. If you live in Lagos, pick any tertiary institution in Lagos, wherever you are in the world, and just say to them that we want to adopt this organization, and this is all we want to do. We want to go to this organization, this school, once in a while, and just do a simple employability program, skills program for these young people. Teach them things like customer service. Teach them things like business writing. Simple things. You are sowing a seed, because they will come out of that institution without any of those skills, and you will need to train all over again as if they didn't go to school. Simple things we can do. How can, in developed countries, they are moving away from a lot of things. Now they are only running courses.
No, that big one sharing.
They are only running courses in universities that are linked to the needs in the corporate world. They are changing their curriculum, changing their focal areas. It's really important. There needs to be a relationship between the work we do in academia, in the universities and in the tertiary institutions, and the needs that, so companies are looking for customer service people. We need a bachelor's degree in customer service. Companies are looking for data analysts. We need degrees in data analysis. Companies are looking for trainers. We need degrees in training. This is what we are seeing. The entire educational enterprise needs to be reworked. And we have a role to play. We also have a role to play in hiring self-motivated learners. And please, let's pay attention to this. It may sound a bit awkward. Some people may dismiss it as being theoretical. But you see, the truth is that what we are hiring today are people who have certificates and who are waiting to be trained. We have to be careful. You see, what we incentivize, remember, go back again, expectancy theory that we discussed earlier. What we incentivize is what we get. I remember explaining to HR professionals all through my career that, and very recently at a forum, that when you hear that there is a lot of exam malpractice in Nigeria, it's because of what we incentivize. You see, the HR people told people, we came out with adverts and so on, and we were telling people that if you don't have a 2-1, we won't hire you. So what do you think people started to do? Simple now. I will do everything I can do, ethical or unethical, legal or illegal, moral or immoral, to get a 2-1. Here we are. So be careful about what you say you are looking for. We need to start saying that we are looking for self-motivated learners. And we need to start developing a rubric, a standard by which we will know people who are self-motivated learners. I'll give you a simple one that I have seen and observed. And it's a very interesting thing, and I'll share it with you. It is that when you look at people's LinkedIn profiles, you can tell a lot about their motivation to learn. Who are they following? What are they posting about? Are they posting at all? It's important, because it's very interesting that I've seen people transition from a full-time job to becoming entrepreneurs, whether because they have retired. So I've seen people at the summit of their careers move out from being a head of HR or a director of sales. Then they move into entrepreneurship. Then all of a sudden you see them very aggressive posting on LinkedIn. Oh, okay. It's because you don't have work now. You don't have time for LinkedIn, or because you are looking for business. Oh, so when you were working in the company you were working for, LinkedIn wasn't important, Abby. Projecting the brand of that company is not important, and selling the company's products. Aha. So when I see an employee who works in a company who is active on LinkedIn, that is indicative that the person is a self-motivated learner. And when you see people who are not sharing information, so think about it this way. We say we want people to do knowledge sharing, Rafi, after a training, Abby. Hey, but they are not doing knowledge sharing on LinkedIn now. So how do we expect them to do knowledge sharing, which is the third best practice here? How is it going to happen? So we have to be honest with ourselves. We need to start changing the narrative. Start telling people that we will not hire you unless you show certain behaviors, unless you demonstrate certain capabilities. Unfortunately, what are we currently saying? We are still saying to people, We won't hire you unless you have 2-1. No problem. I will sleep with the lecturer to get you a 2-1. I will threaten the lecturer with my cult members to get a 2-1. I will bribe the lecturer to get a 2-1. I will use Expo to get a 2-1. Here's the 2-1. Give me my job. We need to start emphasizing what is really important. Knowledge sharing sessions are also a good practice. So some people have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of experience. Some people, we have invested so much in training them. You see, we go to organizations because we do a lot of corporate training. We go to organizations and they tell you, oh, and they brag. You see the HR person, it's like a bragging thing. All our ex-schools, they've gone to Harvard OMP. They've gone to LBS executive program. And you are still asking me to come and do leadership training in your organization. Isn't there something wrong? That you invested tens of millions of hard currency to send people to all these prestigious business schools in volume, in bulk. Now, the managers who are below them are not prepared well for leadership. Then you are saying you want a trainer from outside. Then you are you are now pricing the trainer as if it's granules that you are selling. As if it's granules you want to buy. As if it's pepper. But you are bragging. You see the mentality? You are bragging that, all our ex-school go to Harvard. So when they finish from Harvard, they could not step down to train anybody in the organization. There are so many contradictions in our world as HR professionals. Very sad. And it's important we confront them. And that's what we are here to do. Another good practice is what we call job rotations. It's a good way of getting people to learn. But you see, the problem with some of these things is that if you've hired the wrong people, if you've hired people who are not self-motivated, all this knowledge sharing, job rotation is all a waste. So the fundamental problem goes back to the recruitment problem, isn't it? Get the square pegs in square holes. At the end, it is the root of all problems in HR. But hey, what do? We take what we have and we try to manage it. So job rotations. Then you remember Angela, the question she asked, and thank you so much for that intervention, Angela, around train the trainer. Yes, one of the best practices, and I know that Angela knows this, is to build an internal faculty. Yes, to identify people within the organization who you have made all these investments in the past and say to them, let's sit down together and create a management development program. I was very pleased recently where we were interacting with one of our clients and we were proposing a management development program, and the CEO of that company, he really made my day that day. He said, Michelle, don't you think that we should gather some of our managers who we have exposed, put them together and just build their capacity to run this management development program? And I said, yes, this is exactly where you want to get to. This is more sustainable. This will manage your budget better. And it will create more impact. And I gave him examples of how we had worked on a similar program with Diamond Bank many years ago, where, that's what we were doing. We were doing a leadership development program. We were the external people brought in. We did train the trainer for their top managers, for their top executives. And those top executives working with us now went to do a step down internally. We built an internal faculty and we built internal leadership academy. Very, very successful, right? Very importantly, you as a HR person, what are your own skills? You remember, and again, Angela, it came up in my response to you, train the trainer. So who is going to train the trainer? Can you as a HR person train the trainer? Are you a training expert? You see, apart from paying salaries, the second biggest part of the HR budget is employee development, it's training. Yeah. So salaries aside, and salaries are contractual. Salaries are, you can't run away from them, right? So all things being equal, suspend salaries. Training is the biggest cost, human cost in an organization. So you as the HR manager, as the HR professional, are you an expert trainer? Do you understand the principles of learning, design, and delivery? Can you facilitate training yourself? The last time we talked about training in our last month session, we highlighted this, that you as HR, you are the chief training officer of the company. You are the chief facilitator. Here's the challenge. Do you have those skills? If you don't have those skills, please go and brush up, because that's why you are a member of CIPM. That's why you are a member of NITAD. That's why you have a first degree and a second degree in human resources management, HABA. You are not a professional. We still need to train you. No, foul. These are real issues. Because if the HR person is a trainer, no problem. Then he will be able to, Angela, train the other trainers and even do some of the in-house training. This is where HR adds value. You also need to network for affordable facilitators. And let me explain. You see, at the end of the day, if as a HR person, I have designed a training program, built the curriculum, organized the slides in that content area, customer service, what they call it, business acumen, sales, whatever, leadership, personal effectiveness. Now, I can just reach out to a facilitator and say, Oga, we don't need you for a whole deal. Oga facilitator, we just want you to come and speak to the content we have already developed. Aha. Now you can drop the cost of that facilitator significantly. And if you network properly, you can get those facilitators at significantly reduced costs. But instead of doing that, what do? We slash the HR budget, we slash the training budget, we throw the baby away with the bathwater. We say, oh, our HR budget is so small, we're not doing training this year. So what are we doing? We are doing nothing. These are real issues that we are struggling with in our organizations. We need to also teach our employees how to learn. And this is something that fascinates me. People don't know how to learn. Someone is faced with a challenge. I wrote an article, I published it in the American Society of Training and Development Journal many years ago. It's called CLICK, C-L-I-C-K. I'm going to share it on the WhatsApp group. So make sure you're on the WhatsApp group if you're interested in that article. And this article was published in 2010 or thereabouts, or 2011, a long time ago. Some of us were not even in the workplace at that time. And the article basically teaches people how to learn. How do you learn? Learning is self-motivated. No matter how much course I send you on, training I send you on, if you don't know how to learn, that training is a waste. It's a complete waste of everybody's time. So HR people, you need to start teaching people how to learn. And thankfully, and I say this to my colleagues all the time, I am always trying to teach my employees how to learn. Unfortunately, I say that as unfortunate because I wish they knew how to learn. I wish that all the 18 years, how many years of education? They have 12 years in up to secondary, then another 5 to 6 years. All the 15 to 18 years that they went to formal school should have taught people how to learn. It's unfortunate that we still have to do this in the workplace, but we need to do it. We need to teach people how to Google it. That's how to learn. How to use ChatGPT and AI, which we are so blessed to have. I tell people all the time, when I was a young professional in the late 90s and up to the middle 2000s and up to even more recently, until AI and all this technology came up, if we needed to learn something, I had to go to a library. So we'll join British Council Library in Abuja. We'll join NNPC Library. We join CBN Library. We join, National Universities Commission Library. Because it is only in a library that you find knowledge. So if you have a problem at work, you go to the library to solve it. Thankfully today, if you have a problem at work, you have AI. But people don't even know how to use AI. It's unfortunate. We don't know how to learn. So HR people, you have to teach your people how to learn. You also have to build capabilities of line managers. Very important. The reason is because HR can't be everywhere. You are not omniscient. You are not omnipresent. You are not God. The MD of the company can't be everywhere. The founders of the company can't be everywhere. The people who are everywhere every day are your managers. So if you have promoted people into managerial responsibility and those people don't have the skills for teaching, for training, they don't even have the skills for learning themselves, then nemo dat quod non habet. You can't give what you don't have. So you will have managers who are not even helping the people in the organization. What a sore waste. So you have to build managerial capability. And then, of course, you have to invest in things like e-learning and micro-learning and artificial intelligence, some of which is very affordable, some of which is free. And use these tools and these practices to drive training transfer in your organization, regardless of your budget. So these are some of the practices, that we can think about. Internal faculties, building your own design skills and training skills so that you can be the chief internal facilitator. Networking for affordable facilitators. Yeah. Hiring the right type of people. Intervening in our tertiary institutions. Because some of us have been in this game for a long while. 10 years ago, the quality of graduates is better than today. So if we had all done something over the last 10 years, maybe we would have turned the tide around. If we don't do anything for the next 10 years, it's only going to get worse. So let's do something. We can sit here and whine and complain there's something wrong, there's something wrong. What are we doing about it? Right? It's very important. Finally, what are some of the tools that have been proven to be most efficacious with ensuring that when you make an investment in training and learning and you create that culture, you can get the best results? One of the most effective tools of employee learning is a job aid. A job aid, I'll give you a simple example, right? And I will use an example from one of my colleagues who might be here right now, our finance and compliance manager in Learning Impact. A job aid is simply something that summarizes a performance. So here's the job aid I shared with the young man some months ago when he came into that role. I said, we had a discussion, we had a training about accounting. He's not an accountant. He doesn't have a finance background at all. So training such a person will be appropriate, right? I will not spend that amount of time. Like, for example, his predecessor, I will not spend that amount of time training someone who is a chartered accountant. No, there's no need for me to train you. I can show you our systems and the accounting software we use and our filing system. Why do I need to train you? Yeah, unfortunately, even chartered accountants need to be trained. But let me go back to the original story. So I sat with the gentleman and we got some training about accounting. And when we finished the training, I created a job aid for him. I said, look, accounting is simple. It's about debits and credits, right? It's about understanding ALICE, ALICE, assets, liabilities, income, capital, and expenses. Simple. ALICE. Anytime you have an income, you debit, so we put it on the job aid. You debit this, you credit that. Every time you have an asset, you debit this, you credit that. Simple. That one-page document, I said to him, photocopy it and place it on your desk. This was how I learned accounting. Photocopy it, place it on your desk, so that anytime you want to post, you go and look at that, your ALICE chart. What are you debiting? Who are you crediting? That's all. It's called a job aid. It is the least expensive and the most effective tool for training in the world. You can't go wrong. So imagine if, as a HR person, you can sit down, think about the most critical performances that are required across different jobs in your organization and come up with a job aid with FAQs that will help the people performing those jobs. What do you need? Look, the training will, you just obliterate training. It will be unnecessary because the person has a job aid. So even if you have no training budget, can you create job aids? What do you guys think? Yes? No? With a zero budget? Yeah? Somebody is asking me for the Alice chart. You will pay. Go and look for the accountant. Maybe it's cheap for free. I'm just kidding. We can explore that. Yeah. So think about it, how you can, because without a budget at all, you can all develop job aids. Of course, it requires that HR, you will understand the job. You understand the performance. So if you are HR in a bank, for example, should you understand Alice? Yes. And this is very important. If you are HR in an IT company, should you understand IT things? Yes. If you are HR in a training company, should you understand training things? Yes. If you are HR in a school, should you understand school things? Yes. Because that's what, if you are HR in a fashion company, should you understand fashion things? Yes. You must. That is HR. HR is not who came late, who did not go on leave. How many leave do you have? It's not HR. It's admin. That's personnel management. That has nothing to do with human capability, according to Dave Ulrich. Human capability is about here. So if you're a human capability manager and Uriye Kosimbe, your own head is not there, what capability are you managing? If a human capability manager does not understand the business of the company they are working in, they don't understand banking, they don't understand insurance, they don't understand fashion, they don't understand telecoms, then what are you human capability managing? You're managing Jack. You're just moving files around. You're pushing paper. The same thing, process maps, standard operational procedures. What is your role? You say, oh, line managers, go and do your process map. You, Uncle, you find even the HR process map, Kosi, is not there. Where is your own process? How can you help line managers to do their process? Have you developed a job aid on how to create process maps? Okay, you want managers to do SOP. Have you done a job aid to teach them how to do it? Oh, okay, you want us to bring a trainer from outside. Then your MD will look at you and say, so we hired you as a HR person. You now want us to go and bring a consultant. So what are you? I thought you said you are an organizational development expert. That's what is on your CV. I'm being very critical, but I'm keeping it real. Don't misunderstand. We need to rise to the occasion. Another tool, the job scorecard. Recently I was working for a client. I said, look, because they've had a problem turnover with a particular role. And I said, look, let's look at the job. Let's look at the job design. Remember the job characteristics theory that we explored earlier. So let's look at this job design properly. I said, send me the JD. You see the JD, very watery. I said, a HR person developed this JD, very watery. Just, sometimes we develop these JDs, highfalutin language. The person is responsible for strategizing, all these things. Can you be this is a entry level or something role you're doing, developing the strategies. Use simple. So one of the things I always tell people now, when you're doing a proper JD or a job scorecard, can you break it down into a daily performance, a weekly performance, a monthly performance, a quarterly performance, a yearly performance? What are the specific things the person does every day? Write it in simple language, not all this highfalutin, convoluting language that nobody understands. Is responsible for assisting people. What does that mean? Write it down step by step. What does the person do every day? Every week, what reports do you expect from the person? Every month, what is the performance you expect? Keep it granular, because that is the only way. Remember, expectancy theory. What is the expectation I set? It has to be very clear. So these are tools that will help you to really create that culture of learning, right? How-to videos, we call them explainer videos. Very important. How do you, for example, I've seen organizations struggle with this over the years. They say, oh, our staff, they don't know how to write properly. They don't write memos properly. They don't write emails properly. I say, hey, have you done a how-to video? HR people, are you picking it? A how-to video, how to write, how to use PowerPoint. Yes. Where is your how-to video in your office? It's very important. The more how-to videos you have, the better. So who is going to create this how-to video? No, you can call us in Learning Impact. We can do it too, if you have the right budget. But if you're on a shoestring budget, then I would advise you to do it by yourself. Very important. So do you have the skills to create these videos? Does the HR person themselves know the writing style guide of their company? Do they know how to write minutes of meetings? Do they know how to write call memos? Because memo that, what do not have it. You can't give what you don't have. Shared folders, very interesting. You have things like Google Drive now. You have things like Microsoft, what they call it, Drive. Oh, you have so many drives now. All sorts of, shared folders are very, very valuable. Help you to organize, put the information in the right place for the right people, so that people are not looking for information everywhere. So you have to think about knowledge management in your organization, because knowledge is power. So you have to organize the knowledge in your organization. And one of the tools you can use to organize knowledge are shared folders. So people have access to this folder based on their seniority, based on their department, and then the critical information, your job aids, your FAQs, the information they need to perform, the information they need to learn, all those things are there. Even things like an LMS, a learning management system for your organization. These are very important things. You may think of them as expensive today, but if done properly, these things can save you a lot of money and create the culture of self-motivated learning that you want. And of course, by no means the least, communities of practice. Sounds like a big English, but what are we really saying here? Gather people whose work are similar. Put them on a WhatsApp group. Oh yeah, salespeople, we're all on this WhatsApp group. Customer service people, we are all on this WhatsApp group. IT people, we are all on this WhatsApp group. What do we do in the WhatsApp group? We discuss, we learn, we share information. Imagine if your customer service people at the end of the day, or your call center people throughout the day, they identify some of the hardest and most difficult questions they were asked, and they put it on the WhatsApp group. And the chief customer care officer is able to do what? To say, okay, if these were the tough questions, okay, let's go and develop a new script to respond to these types of questions. Oh, the person in Borno, share your answer with us. What did the person in Taraba think? This is all learning that is going on a shoestring budget. You have created a WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group, people are discussing the real life problems of the organization and its customers on the group, and answers are being preferred. Problem is, here's my experience with WhatsApp groups. People will come and tell you that they are not into WhatsApp. They are not good with WhatsApp. Okay, which one are you good with? We sent you for training. You did not learn. We gave you explainer video. You did not learn. We put you on WhatsApp group. You did not learn. What can we do, ladies and gentlemen of the HR champions group? This type of people, what do we do with them? It's because ab initio, the person was the kind of person we shouldn't have hired in the first place. The kind of people who are not self-motivated learners. So what do we think? What have we learned? What concerns do we have? And what actions we would like to take? Let's spend the next 5 to 10 minutes as we wind down today's program in hopefully an open discussion, contributions, more questions from participants around what it takes to enact training, even if you have a shoestring budget. Anybody? Nobody? Yes, Rabi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I've learned a lot, and I can talk about the key lessons and the key actions. I think one of the things that I'm having issue with is what the issue of the ROI on learning on L&D. And we, as you said, we should look at our policy. What kind of punishment is available for people who refuse to actually honor their side of the agreement? So I think it's something that is very, very great at which I'll be looking at. So that's my key actions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And please receive a virtual chocolate from me for that. You know, I like people who can come into a training intervention and take away something and say, I'm going to do this. You know, it might not work 100%, but you have to try. If you don't try, you will never know. Nothing gained, nothing done, nothing gained. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yes, go ahead, Angela. Your hand is up. And after that, we have Falilat.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Lessons are numerous. First is on the L&D policy. There will be need to review policies and see how we can update to address the issues of today around ensuring that people who are sent on training, there's consequence management. If you don't have consequence of not doing something, people will not. Like the example you gave on the performance appraiser thing. So that's one thing I'll have to take up with my L&D team. Then for the best practice, yes, to hire self-motivated learners. So recruitment is getting more interesting by the day because the person who is coming in is asking you questions. What are the developmental programs you have or training plans you have for new joiners? And I'm quick to tell them that this is strictly in your hands.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the organization have all that it takes. LMS, there are trainings for mandatory trainings and all of that, but it takes somebody who is motivated to pick those things up and then do them, because the learning system is there. So it's up to you. So that's what I tell them, because most people come with the mindset of, oh, I'm going to be trained or sent abroad for one training or the other, you know. So that addresses that issue. Then for the KSS, yes, we are practicing that already, as well as the job rotation. So we call that upskilling. Then for the internal faculty, yes, we have started working something on that, but there is room for improvement, and there's all that you have outlined here is something that I also will take up with the team to see how best we can actually have our facilitators, because we have subject matter experts that are being trained to take up these managerial development programs. Then I also need to learn something on this building, learning, design, and delivery skills. You mentioned something that you're going to share on the platform, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So, and then the suggested tools, they are a lot of work for HR. So when you say HR must understand all of this, the job description aspect, is HR to draw job description for all the units in the business?
Good question.
Isn't that the line manager's responsibility? Because you have been employed as a manager of a certain unit. You know what you want delivered in that unit. So I'm a bit concerned. Yes, HR can develop it. Of course, it's using ChatGPT and all of that to draft, but you need the line manager's consent to check what you have come up with and say, yes, this is what I'm looking at. Get it, not just HR. It's like you now becoming general overseer, you give the instruction, you give the JD. And so I'm a bit lost there. So I need some clarity around HR developing job descriptions for every department.
Right.
And of course the SOP. So that's a lot of work, but it's good. So I need to understand that better so I know how to add that to my learning bucket.
Yeah, so the point, Angela, is a very good question and concern that you have. We're not saying that HR should write all the job descriptions, but HR should have an oversight of it. Remember, what's a job description? What's an SOP? These are all tools of organizational development. Who is the organizational development expert? Yes, the line manager is an expert in IT. He's the head of IT. The line manager, the head of sales, he's the expert in sales. So yes, he should design the job description. But that job description should be critiqued by you as the head of HR. You should be able to look at it. It should be the other way around. So I don't want HR to design the job description. I want HR to be able to get line managers to design their jobs properly. So remember the job characteristics model. If you don't design the job properly in the job description, and the line manager does a wishy-washy job of a job description that they got from ChatGPT or wherever, and it is using highfalutin language that is not very specific and does not really define the expectations of the job. Remember the expectancy theory. Then what's going to happen? You're going to have a lousy job description and you're going to have a lousy performance. And whose fault is it going to be? They say, but you have HR in this company now. HR, what did you do about it? So I think that HR needs to be more critical of job descriptions. Yes, it's very good that the responsibility lies with the line manager. But did you teach the line manager how to do it properly? That is where we are talking about. So in your management development program, did it address that issue? Oh, you are now a manager. This is how you should develop job descriptions. Here is the how-to video on how to develop job descriptions. Aha, that is HR. It's HR that will do the how-to video, because HR is the custodian of organizational culture and organizational development. Do you see it now? So yes,
it's clear.
that is where we are hoping that HR will get to.
It's like helping also to draw the KPIs.
Exactly.
So
And the same thing with KPIs and so on and so forth. We are the custodians of those things. They work for us, and we must teach them how to do it properly, supervise and critique what they do, and raise the standard. That is our continuous job. And we can only do so when we have raised our own standard internally. And that's why we are having these conversations on the champions of HR group. Finally,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Angela, as always. Falilat, fire on. I hope your hand is not paining you. Your hand has been up for a while.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the interesting class. I really learned a lot. Sorry, I have just a question to ask because this had been bothering me for a while now. If people go on training, how can we ensure that training translates to improved job performance in an organization? Thank you. That's all, sir.
All right. Thanks very much, Falilat, and good to have you here. I just want to go back to that thing, So if you want training to have a good impact in an organization, then you have to ask yourself, where is the policy of training? Where does it sit? What principles drive that policy? Is there a policy? Does it speak to the issues of competency-based training? Meaning that, do you have a competency framework in organization? If you listen to Angela, she said, look, that in her organization, when you start, as you are going, they have what we call a hierarchical competency model. They have a functional competency model that says in this function, let's say accounting, finance, there are particular knowledge, skills, and behaviors, competencies for you to succeed in the finance function, in the IT function. All of these things have been laid out. Then as you grow in finance, as you move from officer to manager to executive in finance, the competencies are further described in very clear detail. Because what that does is that it creates what we call a learning roadmap. So if you listen to Angela, they have a learning roadmap. With that learning roadmap, I don't need to train you. The roadmap is there, follow it. Can you see what happens immediately?
Yeah.
So because there's a roadmap based on competencies, then it's easy to train people, and it is even easier to motivate people to learn. ROI is important because ROI is about, look, where's the budget? If we spend 5 million on this training, what do we hope to get out of it? You, as a training manager, as a HR manager, you need to be able to answer that question. And the fact that we can't answer this question is the reason why our executives are very cynical about training. They say, all this training is that you just want to go and eat jollof rice. Again, Angela said it. You know, you just want to go for a holiday, or you just want to beef up your CV. Where is the return on investment for us? So if HR people don't know have a training ROI model, if they don't have a system to say, we have spent 50 million on training, how does this 50 million translate to business growth and revenues? If you can't explain it in Naira and Kobo, then executives are going to become increasingly cynical about training. Training transfer, the specific question you asked about, yes, there are certain things that you need to enact. I would also share on the group. So there are two things I promised to share on the group. First is click. Angela, I haven't forgotten, I've written it down. And the second is sustaining the impact of learning. I think I may have shared it some time ago, but if I didn't, I'm going to share it again. How do you ensure that before a training, Falilat, during the training and after the training, there are certain things you do? If you don't do them, nothing will transfer. And those things have to do with you as a HR person. So there are certain things HR should do before a training, should do during the training, and do after the training that increases transfer. If you don't do those things, transfer is not going to happen. Transfer will be an illusion, a pipe dream that you pray that the Egbesu boys will not bust the pipe. Yeah? So I share that on the group. I hope it will help.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
And thank you very much for your very interesting and thought-provoking question. So, ladies and gentlemen, look, it's a Easter holiday. I need not take up any more of your time. I'm really grateful on behalf of myself and my colleagues at Learning Impact that you joined us again this month in April in the middle of a holiday weekend like this. Very grateful. It shows your commitment to your own self-development. I saw amazing comments on the group, people making commitments, Ngozi and Osamuyi and so on, and Olufumilayo. Thanks for your feedback, for Larry and Moses, and so on and so forth, for all your feedback and all your contributions, and all the things that you have committed to doing. Absolutely important. And so on and so forth. Olaiton would like the WhatsApp group link shared again, so please, one of my colleagues kindly share the link here so that you can join that group, and you can invite other professionals, to join us. We are an open group. So long as you're a HR person, you're a serious-minded HR person who wants to learn. Even if you're not a HR person, if you are aspiring to be in HR, if you're a leader that is concerned about HR, we are open. The important thing, the group has rules. You follow the rules, which will be shared with you. And, we continue to learn and to grow with each other. Yeah. So I'd like to use this opportunity to again thank everybody. We started off with theoretical foundations. We explored some of the challenges. We explored the root causes. We identified best practices. We also identified a number of tools. And I'm really happy and excited about job aids. There's one day we are going to do a whole program here on how to design job aids. These are different things, that we have learned, and we're happy to teach and mentor the next generation of HR leaders. And of course, we listen to you on your reflections and the commitments that you made, both orally and in writing on the chat. And we really encourage everybody to go back and improve the quality of training, even if you're on a shoestring budget. Feel free to encourage other people to join our group. Yeah, it's really important. We want this group to grow because we want to improve the quality of HR practice in our organizations. better HR equals better people, equals better organizations, and a better society for us all. So thank you again. And thanks to my colleagues who have been working the system at the background to ensure that everything works out well. Happy Easter to everybody. And we look forward to seeing you in May for yet another exciting episode. And we also look forward to chatting with you on the WhatsApp group and sharing more ideas around how to become a HR champion. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye, everyone. Happy Easter.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Thank you.
Bye.